Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Damme and you're watching Flick Connection. If you're a fan of the show, you've been around for a while, you know I am a fan of weird movies, and today I've got 10 really good yet weird movies you can currently watch on Amazon Prime. Now, starting this list off all the way back at number 10 is one of the newest releases on Amazon Prime at the moment, and that is Under the Silver Lake. So this is actually done by the same director who did It Follows. It's his second film, and there was a lot of anticipation for Under the Silver Lake. In my opinion, it didn't deliver, but only because he reached for the brass ring. This movie's very, very ambitious. It stars Andrew Garfield as a sort of reluctant detective type. Think Big Lebowski, Inherent Vice. This one's just super weird. There's a dead squirrel in the beginning that probably means something. There's a nightclub that is underneath the earth with headstones for tables, all sorts of just weird things that are not explained. So this is gonna be leaving you wondering when it's over, for sure. And it's not for everybody, that's why it's at the back. I think it's very well executed, but this one is so weird. It might even be the weirdest one on the list. It's so weird. It's gonna leave a lot of people disappointed, but if you like super weird movies, Under the Silver Lake might be your bag. Now, a lot of these, like I said, are pretty dark. The lightest one on this list is called Stranger Than Fiction. It actually stars Will Ferrell, and it's one of his artsier movies. This is not a Will Ferrell movie, meaning if you're just tired of the Will Ferrell brand of comedy, this movie is on a completely different page. He plays a character who finds out he's basically a person in a novel that's being written, and that person is going to die. So he's sort of not in control of his life, so to speak, and it's a very interesting concept and a very interesting delivery. Again, you're not getting super weird Will Ferrell, however, it is just a really weird movie, but it is fairly lighthearted, considering the rest of the the rest of the darkness I have on this list. Too Old to Die Young is a new series on Amazon Prime. A lot of people are talking about it. It's directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, who's most famous for the movie Drive with Ryan Gosling, but he's got another movie on Amazon Prime right now called The Neon Demon. This is about I guess she's a supermodel, a rising model, in sort of jealousy, behind the scenes kind of stuff, and then it gets so insanely weird. Too weird for my taste at moments, but in general, I thought the overall vibe of this movie was really cool. It's super artsy. I liked how dark it got, but this one was a little bit too much for me, like I said, at moments, but I'm willing to overlook a couple of moments considering I enjoyed the rest of it enough. Now, the one on the list I need to warn the most people about, this is gonna be for you crazy people who love to watch just an absolutely bonkers movie. If you're sensitive to violence, sex, assault, super crazy stuff, don't watch the movie Braid. If you love all of that stuff, be sure to watch the movie Braid. It's got a very, very good description on Amazon Prime, so I'm just gonna read that. Two wanted women decide to rob their wealthy yet mentally unstable friend who lives in a fantasy world they created as children. To take her money, the girls must take part in a deadly and perverse game of make-believe throughout a sprawling yet decaying estate. As things become increasingly violent and hallucinatory, they realize that obtaining the money may be the least of their concerns. I don't know who wrote that, but it is the best description for a movie I've ever heard. It doesn't spoil anything, it lays it out. I'll say this movie is like Clockwork Orange level madness. If that movie's too intense for you, Braid is going to be too intense for you, but I personally loved it. I mentioned A Scanner Darkly in my Flicks of the Week just this week, so I'll be brief, but this one is actually done in this animation style that was very, very cutting edge when the movie came out. They filmed the whole movie with stars like Keanu Reeves, Woody Harrelson, Robert Downey Jr. It's directed by Richard Linklater, who's most famous for Dazed and Confused, but this one gets this filter of animation that looks simple enough now, but it was very complicated at the time, and you also get this Philip K. Dick sci-fi movie delivered in this really interesting way. If Philip K. Dick sounds familiar, think Blade Runner. This movie takes place in a little bit more of our present time, so it's not Blade Runner level, but it's still same author, great director, and great style with a great cast. By the way, if you like this type of content, definitely go ahead and click that subscribe button and be sure to click the little bell icon so you get notified when I put out new videos just like this one. My number 5 pick is another recent release, and it's an Amazon Prime original, and that's Suspiria. And if that sounds odd, you think Suspiria came out in theaters. Well, that's how Amazon differs from Netflix. They release all of their originals in theaters. It's a remake of a classic horror flick, a very art house horror flick by the same name. This one doesn't have the style of the original, yet it all feels very highbrow. It is super weird, just like all of the other ones. It gets really gory. I actually kind of struggled with this one as well, but did like it. As far as horror movies go, this one just puts you in a different place. And I enjoyed being there for the 2 hours. I think the original, just in my personal opinion, is better, but I do know there are plenty of people that prefer this remake, as it is a very good remake. Another sci-fi entry on this list is Gattaca, starring Uma Thurman, Jude Law, and Ethan Hawke as the lead, and it takes place in a future where your job and your future and your status in life is all decided by your genetics. So Ethan Hawke plays a character who desperately wants to take part in the space program of the future, and he can't because his genes dictate that he should be a janitor. So they fake this entire charade in order for him to become this astronaut, and it's an interesting look into the future, what could be done with genetics, how people could be discriminated against unfairly, utilizing technology. It plays out almost like a heist movie because they're planning this deception the entire time, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it as well, on top of just being this really kind of stylish, cool, futuristic thing. So The Dark Crystal is a Jim Henson fantasy movie with some crazy puppetry and characters and this really dark, moody vibe. It's super weird, and the reason it makes this list is, one, it's just classic nostalgia from the 80s. It's an incredible movie before they were doing CGI. Everything's in camera. It's beautiful. Well, Netflix is releasing a series of The Dark Crystal at the end of August, so now is the perfect time to watch the original, and you can, as far as I know, you can only watch it on Amazon Prime. However, I suspect that Netflix will have it available by the time the movie comes out, or by the time the series comes out. So one of my favorite movies in recent years is Brawl in Cell Block 99. This stars Vince Vaughn as this bad dude. He's a criminal. He ends up in jail, and they have some fights in jail. Now, there's a lot more to the story. I thought the story was great. The first half is fairly slow, but I found it to be interesting. I found his character to be interesting. I found the other cast and the story kind of to be interesting. I think Breaking Bad fans are gonna find this appealing. But then shortly after he's in prison, really, honestly, almost to the minute in the halfway mark of this movie, after 1 hour, something happens, something snaps, and the entire tone of the movie changes. It becomes much more fast-paced, and the reason this one's weird, it's a weird prison system. It's not our prison system, and it makes for some very interesting things on film. This one's got a little bit of gore to it, but such an interesting kind of funky flavor. If you liked Dragged Across Concrete or Bone Tomahawk, this is done by the same director, and it happens to be my favorite film of his. And then at number 1, a movie by Steven Soderbergh. I've recommended it recently, Side Effects. Now, if you liked Unsane, which came out just last year, it was all filmed on an iPhone, that's Steven Soderbergh. He's more famous for the Ocean's 13 movies, the remakes, but Unsane was a success for him. Side Effects is similar. Some of it takes place in an insane asylum. It's very psychological crime thriller type of a thing. This one is way better in my opinion. It plays out way better. The performances are incredible. The story is just twisted and dark and odd, and you don't see things coming throughout the movie, and it's all delivered really well. It felt like a Hitchcock movie or something to me, so I love this one. That's why it's my number 1 pick. Let me know what you plan on watching in the comments below, or what you think should have been number 1. But if you want to support the channel, you can consider becoming a Patreon supporter like one of these fine people. The support goes to help the show be better, helps me buy better gear, better tripods, and also insulates me from YouTube shenanigans when they decide to just demonetize everything, which has happened a little bit. I think I might be in the clear on some of that, but thanks for watching this episode, and I will keep making shows like this as long as you keep watching them, but you will see me on the next one.